Assalamualaikum everyone. My name is Areeba Malik and today I am talking about the two very powerful words savages and civilized. These sounds simple but behind them is a whole history of the colonialism, racism and power. Let's break it down. Historical background. So where did this idea begin? Even in Homer's Odyssey, ships sailing into the unknown lands represented the idea of the dangerous other. By 1601, Europeans were using the phrase civilizing people, believing it was their duty to fix to the rest of the world. By 1614, the word uncivilized was officially in use, and just like that, a mental map was created. In the 18th century came some novel savages, a romantic idea of the pure, simple, natural humans used to contrast with the complicated European life. By the 1990s, scholars finally started asking, wait, who decided all of this? The core idea was simple. Europeans put the words into the two boxes, civilized and savages, and they always put themselves in the first one. Western standard became the norm, everything else was inferior. Africa was shown as dark and primitive not because it was true, but because that image made Europe looks better. The noble savages was sometimes romanticized, innocent, free, pure, and contrast to the Europeans' own corrupt society. And here's the twist: Europeans actually needed the savages image to define themselves. Without the others, they could not explain who they were. Critics and thinkers, brilliant mind studies and challenges this. The Chinua looks at the cornered heart of the darkness and said, Africa is just a dark backdrop in this story. No wise, no humanity, just darkness to make Europeans look bright. Conrad himself reflected the colonial mindset of his time, which is exactly why we study him critically today. Freud added a psychological angle. His ego superego id theory suggested that beneath every civilized person lives a primitive instinct, so even Europe could not fully escape its own savages. And Rousseau completely flipped it. He said modern society itself corrupts humans. Naturally, people were innocent and free. His noble savages was actually a criticism of the Europe, not Africa. So what was this divided actually doing? It was a tool of power. It justified colonial rule. If you believe someone is pyramid taking their lands feels like a favor, it splits Western identity. Europe needed to feel superior, and entered books, classroom, and minds, which is why post-colonial scholars still study it today. These ideas just don't disappear; they just go quieter. Two books shows is perfectly Heart of Darkness by Conrad. Africa is dark, pyramid is silent, Europeans are civilized and in control. Pure colonial thinking on paper. Things Fall Apart by Chinua Achebe, the complete answer. The Igbo society is organized, rich, deeply human. Achebe shows the clash between colonial and indigenous values and asks you to rethink everything. So even today, open any news channel, coverage of Africa on the Middle East is mostly chaos, conflict, violence, rarely the culture, the art, the history. That is the savages and civilized divided, still running, still shaping how we see the world. HAB wrote things fall apart, so we would stop and ask who decided, who was civilized, and who gave them as right. Think about it. Thanks for watching.